There I am. Back. Better
We're
than that.
back. We're back. Got kicked off. So where did we leave off, Jonah? You were
Ra's Bardo, the Bardo of Ra.
Yeah.
And you were saying, Mark, about how the Bardo, if it's not completed, then the personality crystal doesn't get back to its prime bundle, and it can end up getting stuck here as a rogue bundle.
Yeah, that's correct. So, is that the primary field of access that mediums and channelers are getting? How's that working? Because, and then you take in his lectures on encounter and how the mechanics work behind that, along with him saying often channeling, for lack of a better term, is more not self. But I don't know exactly how that weighs in, because my experience of it has been, well, it was vast. So, where does that come from? But I definitely do have questioned it over the years, because mechanics reveal a lot of things that were hidden before. And so I always take that stuff into consideration when I'm looking at that subject area.
Like, give a couple of examples of things that were hidden before.
Well, all the mechanics in terms of how things work in the world, and then through that experience of seeing how they work is validated. The mechanics as the voice was given to Ra and Ra to everyone else. You could see that works. So some of the larger components that are not necessarily provable, but came from the same source. So by extension, if you extrapolate it out, why wouldn't it work the way the voice said? If it works on a micro level, why wouldn't it work on a macro level?
Right.
So the voice says, the personality crystal and Ra reiterated has no thought. There's nothing going on. So where are these thoughts coming from what people are channeling? What are they filtering? Is it just the memories in the personality crystal that they're interacting with and interpreting it? Or is there some actual interaction?
Right.
Or is it just something going through there that's pulling whatever consciousness streams or whatever memories are in there, and that's being readjusted or something to the messages that people are filtering in? I don't know.
Yeah, my take on it is that we mentally model people, and that is effectively the best channels. See, even when we're mentally modeling someone, we're kind of tuning into them a little bit, and we're tapping into the way they think and the way that they filter and their frequency and so on. And I can notice even some human design analysts or some former friends of Ra, I can notice when, the mystics would say Ra is present. And I don't know if that means his personality crystal is literally hanging out in the room, because it doesn't need to. We know that neutrinos are going in all directions, so that my personality crystal is right above my hat, or right above my head here. Ra would always joke why he wears hats is to keep his personality crystal warm. But say it's just right above my head here. Well, there are neutrinos passing through this point in space, and then a split second later, just a few milliseconds later, passing through your body and your body, and passing through every other body of every other human on the entire planet. Because that's just the nature of neutrinos. They're coming from all directions at once, and they go at nearly the speed of light. And so every single human being on the planet is being penetrated by neutrinos that have just passed through every other single human being on the planet.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I'm saying, when we mentally model, even when we're talking to someone and trying to find words for them to understand what we mean or communicate, in some sense, we're tuning into their frequency, and we're trying to look for indicators, or even just use our intuition to discern whether or not we're communicating with them. And we have a mental model of them. And I think the best channels are simply able to really tune in. They know that frequency so well. They have the signature for it in some sense, or they have its address, like an IP address on the internet,
Yeah.
and they're able to just really tune into it. Now, as the voice said, and as you were saying, Mark, the crystal itself is not self-reflected consciousness. The self-reflected consciousness is in the person doing the channeling. So it's a creative work. And the creative work is, well, what would Ra think about this movie? What would Ra think about this news? People even say, oh, wow, Ra would love to have seen the news. He would have loved to see all of his 2027 predictions come true. I mean, how do we know he would have loved that? Well, we have some sense of him, and we have some sense of who he was. And maybe with that sense, we are, in some sense, able to access a certain frequency that was Ra's unique signature. And then people disagree about it. And one person said, well, I think Ra would have said this. And someone else says, well, I think they would have said that. And we get into the whole issue that it is as much a creative act as it is. I mean, there's no perfectly clean channel is kind of what I'm trying to say.
Right,
right.
I mean, if you say, oh, your mother wants you to know how much she loved you, well, that could be that tuning into the frequency of the mother. If someone is able to do that, they are able to get that sort of sense of love, and then they translate it into words. On the other hand, they may also just be tuning into some sort of great mother archetype that's, or even one of the prime crystal bundles. I mean, some people might be, depending on their level of channeling and their level of expertise, and some people might be able to take an object from someone and use that object's signature. Say they have sixth tone touch cognition, and they're able to kind of get the frequency of that person, and maybe they can access them. Other people might think they're accessing your mother, and really they're accessing one of the 16 prime personality bundles, right? Or they're accessing
something within, or something within the person themselves.
That as well, yeah.
So, because you can be accessing memories, you can be accessing all kinds of things.
Right. They might think they're channeling the mother, but really they're channeling the son or daughter or the child.
And their thoughts.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, that's a really good point, because there's a lot of things that could be happening that are all kind of called channeling, but it's not really a specific enough term to describe exactly what's happening in every case.
Well, I mean, channeling in a certain extent has and I'm closing my eyes because I'm meditation. When I go deeper, I close my eyes. It connects me more. And then I did a lot of readings with my eyes closed. But channeling is giving and delivering generally a message. You're delivering information from a particular source, or at least an alleged source that is giving you something. And, intuitive reading is a little different, is that you're going in and you're accessing information and pulling information maybe in a different way, even though they could be similar. But channeling specifically is like, let me channel, Ra or whatever, let me channel Zed, because Zed's cool. Whatever it is that you're channeling, it's a message you're looking for. And you inevitably, whenever I did do it, I just step aside and just let whatever was coming through me come through me. And I was as much an audience member as I was conveying the message as anyone who was listening to it, because I had no idea. I was just stepping back and letting things go through me.
Right. Right.
As a medium,
right.
That's what a medium is, doing that kind of thing. But then again, I could see mechanically going through all the different courses and all the different things and how he explains it, or how could be a very, very tricky situation in terms of what really is going on. And I don't know if we'll ever get a definitive answer on that, actually. But it is something that is definitely a point of potential contention.
Yeah. You guys, is there a soul involved in any of this?
What's called the soul is usually thought to be the personality crystal, although the way the theosophers describe the soul is more actually like the design crystal, and they would have called the personality crystal spirit. So, I mean, it really depends what you mean by that. The term soul actually is also translated as psyche, and psyche is translated as soul. So is there a psyche? Well, yes, we have psyches. We have psychological beings. We have interiority. We have, so yeah.
Usually a lot of times in past, Ra's equated it usually to the personality crystal, to that passenger, actually, which is somewhat different than the person. There's a lot of different nuances in all this.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that goes from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. And
Okay.
it's usually in the same base also. So there's a
Okay.
certain quality that is always being conveyed from lifetime to lifetime. What makes it a little different is because it's in a body, and the body, is the hardware, and the personality is the software. So they come together, and it's like it makes something. So when
Right.
you don't have that something, then it's something else.
Okay.
It's not a life.
Right.
So again, it goes back to that point. What exactly are we channeling? Channeling information through the neutrino field that carries it with it, and then where the receptors that picks up on that. And depending on, again, like Jonah mentioned earlier, depending on your receptivity to that, your skill to that, your ability to tune in, that will determine the quality maybe, or the depth of whatever message or whatever information you're getting. It's like most people can dribble a basketball, but then there's very few that can dribble a basketball like somebody in the NBA. It's like,
Right.
so you have different levels of talent, or you have different levels of skill set that are made specifically for these types of things.
Yeah.
And they have different tracks too. It's not like every psychic can know every psychic kind of thing. They usually have particular paths, or paths of concentration that they have a focus on,
Yeah.
usually,
Yeah.
an emphasis, a point of
Yeah, I know an
emphasis.
incredible channel who, for instance, works with Akashic Records. She doesn't have any interest in delivering a message from a lost loved one or anything like that. She doesn't check the Akashic Records for that. In fact, she doesn't check other people's Akashic Records. She doesn't have permission to. She can only check your Akashic Records if you consent, because that's one of the rules that she abides. And so she's not going to be poking around in other people's lives or trying to get other people to show up or access their crystals or any of that. But she does facilitate, for instance, the ability for you yourself to go into your own Akashic records and to have revealed to you some information that may be there about things that have been either vows that haven't been kept that need to be forgiven, or karmic debt that has been accrued that can be worked through, and so on. So yeah, she's a channel, but she's not channeling lost loved ones. Now there's I know a different channel, Shruti Campbell. She's actually a good personal friend of an acquaintance and former colleague of mine. And they've done a tremendous amount of work channeling, for instance, Carl Jung, channeling James Hillman, and so on. That is another, it's interesting to me. It's not as interesting, and it seems more widespread. I mean, I would again point out, we're in the Maya, and the word Maya has the root ma, which means to measure. And everybody loves to measure and compare and say better or worse. It's not better or worse, but there are hierarchies, and the hierarchies they have been historically, for instance, in the Theosophical Society, described as levels of initiation. And it doesn't mean the level of physical initiation of going through a ritual. It means the level of, the soul's initiation or the spirit's initiation, whatever you want to look at, the personality crystal, essentially going through different levels of initiation. The mind can go nuts with this stuff and get obsessed with ascension and what level of initiation I am, and it's better or worse because I'm at this level or that level. I would simply just say it's just different. Some people are not going to have access to the Akashic records in that way. Some people are going to not even have access to, it's levels.
Human design.
They're just kind of, it's just so different, right?
Yeah.
But I would also say that for people that are interested in this, I think one of the most interesting things you can do is to see if you yourself have the gift of being able to access certain things you might not realize you have, because a lot of this stuff is simply about tuning into it. And that is one nice thing about human design, is it gets the mind out of the way, so you can actually be the passenger, or you can actually experience what's going on. And my personal take on it, here's something Rob would always say is, if you want to see if somebody who claims to have access to these other realms really does, ask them how many entities are just around. And if they say there's just hundreds or thousands in every room all the time, they're probably legit, because it's an extremely densely packed field. So my personal opinion on the matter is, this stuff is always around. People talk about their guides or having people, their angels, their ascended masters, their people looking out for them. They are always there every second of every day. We just don't notice because we're not tuned into that, because we're busy. We're not in a psychedelic state. We're not in a mind opened state where we're kind of noticing those kinds of things. And that's probably for the best, because it's hard to drive around town and go run errands and do all the stuff we need to do. But human design can, not always, it can open you up to that. I mean, I think human design is about calibrating to what is correct for you. So some people, before human design, they're so wide open to all this stuff that they're just completely full of mind, amplifying everything and trying to, and for them, human design can really help ground them. Other people have been diehard, stone cold skeptics who don't even believe that there is such a thing as a soul or a spirit or a personality crystal or whatever you want to call it. And human design might actually quiet their skeptical mind and kind of allow them to surrender to actually witnessing some of these other aspects of reality. So it's not that one is better or worse than the other. Obviously, there is a spiritual reality. I mean, Ra, he was the biggest skeptic there was until he couldn't be anymore, because he had an 8-day encounter with a voice, which was from this other reality. But after those 8 days, he mostly went back to the normal reality, with the exception, as mentioned earlier, of Uru and Hu, which would still communicate with him. But anyway, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Mark, or Sparkly.
Well, one thing that came up, Sparkly, that you mentioned earlier, is that when I was doing this work of intuition and channeling and mediumship, all the different things, psychic stuff, healing work, energy work, I was giving a lot of good information. I was getting people stuff that was helpful. But there was a question that came to mind. I said, was there anything more? I wish I can give them something more tangible so they did not have to rely on me for information. And right after that, I mean, swear right after that, human design came right into my life front and center. And here it was, this blueprint, how to be yourself and get your own answers, right? So that was a lot of, I think, that where you asked me how come I went away from it, is that I didn't want to usurp people's authority by having them deal with what I'm sharing with them, however that's coming through, for whomever it's coming through, however. As good as that information was, I was still would want somebody to have this tangible thing, and that thing was their own chart. And that was really where it led to that progression of now 17 plus years in this experience of human design, and going deeper and deeper, and I'd still go by that. I've shied away sometimes from people asking me for intuitive insights about what this could be or what that is. And often it's because it's their own process that has to figure it out. They have to figure it out. It's telling them why, and then fixing it. I'm a hoper. I'll give you the hope, the mechanics get there, but it's up to you to do that. So for me, that has been my path. But I still, as we were talking before, I'm still contemplating, like, where is all this stuff and what does it all mean to some degree? Now, whether it's correct for me to use it or not, that's another story.
Right. Yeah. I just, this is interesting, but I just recently spoke to a friend. She's a medium. Her name is Veronica Drake. And she told me that so for those of you who don't know, I had a spinal fusion going on 1.5 years ago. I injured myself at work, and I'm a 5'1". Was in the middle of a really gnarly projection. It was really, really gnarly, and ended up injuring myself, getting fired, and am now in the middle of lawsuits and all of these different things. I broke my back basically at work. And when I had the surgery, I would I was at home, and every friggin' night, starting at 10 p.m., I would cry in pain. And I'm talking a good 6 months, until about 4 a.m. And I would feel like I was having an exorcism. It was the worst thing I have ever in my life. I have never felt, and it was nerve pain is what it was. Anyway, the medium that I spoke with, Veronica, said to me, and she didn't know this about me, and she said, your back injury was your initiation into human design. It was your initiation into being becoming aligned with who you are, and really your true purpose in life. And she's like, and I can't really tell you more than that, but that's just kind of what I get. And I think about it, and I think about, I do talk to a lot of different fifth lines, and fifth lines and projections and all that stuff is my thing. I mean, I really love learning about that stuff. And in some cases, getting burned at the stake, we all think, oh, that's, wasn't correct. In my case, I actually think it was a gnarly burning. But if that wouldn't have happened, I would still be doing the same job that I had been doing for 20 years. And I would have never gone down this road the way that I have now. And being on that medication, I mean, I had a lot of time to lay there and think, and to not think, and to cry, and to just, oh God. And as soon as I stopped taking the medication, and I'm that person, by the way, I have a wide open spleen. I woke up one day and I said, I'm not fucking doing this anymore. I'm done with all this medication. I'm done. And I stopped. No withdrawals, nothing like that. I just stopped. And that's when I really started getting, and this is how it works for me. Laying in bed at night, it's always around the same time, between 3:30 in the morning. I'll wake up, and I'm just going to use an example. I'll start thinking about apples. Don't know why. I'm not focused on apples. I didn't eat an apple. I don't have a start thinking about apples. Go back to sleep. The next day, and it's usually within 24 hours, I'll start getting either a phone call or an email. It will be somebody reaching out to me, and it will have something to do with apples. And so in response, I'm like, I start investigating what they asked me about apples. I find the answer, and I said, well, this is where you might want to look for, and it's not apples, it will be something else. But it's never just one person. It's like 3 or 4 or 7. And then it leads me down this whole other road into this whole other different community that I've given them just a few little messages for them to go investigate. And they're just like, thank you so much. And that's how it works for me. And I don't know what that is. I don't know who's putting the apple in my head, but that's how mine works, or how it's been working lately.
Maybe someone would tell you, like William or something. I don't know.
Maybe the apple cart had to spill.
I have to say William Tell now, because there's people going to be looking at it going, what does he mean?
I got that. That's why I thought William Tell ? And then I was like, yeah.
You got to be quick around here.
Anyway, especially with you, Mark. I know you're quick. Yeah, you're quick. I'll never forget the time I told you the story about somebody stealing all my oranges off my orange trees. I watered those damn orange trees. I prayed in my orange trees. I live in Arizona, and it was during the pandemic, and there was no rain, and I was, and my husband was like the water Nazi and didn't want to use all the water. And I finally go out, all my oranges are there, and I taste one, and I'm like, this is a sweet orange. I felt so accomplished that I kept these trees alive. The oranges are sweet. And I said, tomorrow I'm going to go and wake up, and I'm going to pick them all. I woke up in the morning and they were all gone because someone stole them. And I said, you know what? This is what it feels like to be a fucking generator, doing all the work, so someone else can. And I was so mad. And then you started making jokes about oranges for like weeks. Like, Orange, you glad that you didn't do this? Or
Yeah, it's something I can't remember. It's all in the moment.
I know. Oh, well, anyway, I guess this has been a really interesting conversation, and I know that this wasn't necessarily planned, and I really, really appreciate it. Do you guys, Jonah, what kinds of things are you up to? Anything that you want to talk about that you're doing, or anything coming up? Or
I'll leave a couple just to kind of, I'm going to put just a couple comments on well, your kind of newfound phase of in the last 6 or 7 months, and also just a few comments on that. So one is I think there's a lot of reluctance in human design communities to talk about anything other than human design, and that's important for people just getting into human design. Part of the reason is that so many people getting into human design are looking for, isn't there something else? Isn't there something else I can do? Do I really have to follow strategy and authority? Can't I just get into channeling, or can't I just get into this or that? Now, at the same time, it is really valuable for those of us who are deep in the human design experiment, or at any level, really, where we're to just have the freedom to sort of explore some of these other areas. So I just wanted to kind of share a couple of my opinions about that. One is I found human design 9 years before I entered my experiment. And I've said this quite a bit. And so I do think it is absolutely possible to study human design for many, many years and not enter into it. And in fact, a lot of people who are very interested in regular posters and so on are not. Then you find other people who are, it's not that they've already done the deconditioning, but Ra didn't decondition, he deconstructed. And other people have gone through their own. It's very rare, but there are certain deconstruction things that happen for people that sort of prepare them either to enter into the experiment, or I guess my point is, when I was talking about, I would just say for any of the viewers who are interested in going a little deeper, with the caution that if you're in human design and you're new to human design and you're looking for all the mind candy to sort of give yourself a pat on the back because you have an undefined ego and you want to feel good about yourself, don't look into this stuff. But if you are somewhat of a spiritual adept or a mystic, there's a great quote: shrouds don't have pockets, because the mystics wear shrouds, but the shrouds don't have pockets, meaning you can't take anything with you. You can't load up your pockets with money and with ego and badges and all that. So if you really are on that mystical path, I would just urge people to look into what's called the levels of initiation of theosophical material. There's a Wikipedia, you can go on Theosophy Wiki. And the reason for that is because what you see is that essentially people are at extremely different places in their developmental process, if we can call it that. And I think what human design is really here to do, if you read the theosophical levels of initiation, they claim less than 1 million people in the world historically have ever attained level 1. Most of the world is at level 0, and it's the low zeros, like 0.3, because there's little like incremental levels, or 0.2, 0.3. That's the average development. Level 1 is marked in the theosophical literature as trusting your own inner authority. They even use the term authority. There's a lot of crossover because Rob used he was studying theosophy when he had his encounter with the voice, the ray charts and so on. And they basically say trusting yourself over any priest, over parents, over anything outside of you. And that less than 1 million people in the whole history of the world have ever attained this, truly trusting themselves. More than what the priest tells them, more than what the boss or the king or the parents or any of those. And they use terms like authority. Now, they don't tell you how to get there other than that it's, because that's the problem. You tell someone to trust themselves, they're like, I do, but it's like, what are they trusting? They're trusting their mind because they identify the self with the mind. And so that's the real problem. However, I do think that level 1 is what human design is trying to get people to. It's trying to get them into the practice of getting to level 1. Well, then you're going to have people that are level 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and you can read these levels, and they each have very different challenges, and they also have different access and so on. And it's not until level 2 that you begin to develop psychic powers. And so it might be that, you entered into level 1 7 years ago when you learned strategy and authority, and you entered level 2 when you had your huge, medical event that kind of, initiated you into the next level. According to the Theosophers, most of the initiations happen while we're asleep in the night, when we're visited by higher level ascended masters. Now, again, this is all metaphorical, this is kind of, we're not visited by a self-reflected consciousness. It's simply that we tap into a neutrino stream going through this or that personality crystal or this or that bundle, and it somehow grants us access, or we interpret it in a way. I mean, these are mysteries. That's why they call it mysticism, right? These are the mysteries. So I just wanted to kind of say, for those who are just getting into human design, be careful, because a lot of this mind candy, this can, especially if you have an undefined ego and you're really susceptible to looking for anything to kind of give yourself a badge or a pat on the back or boost up your esteem, like, oh, well, I'm a higher level than you, or this or that. Very dangerous. But for those of us who've been in human design, or we're just in a different state and we're trying to understand and make sense of these mystical experiences we're having, and we're getting psychic powers, and we're getting, say you just start channeling, I would say it's worth looking into that. And I'll just leave it with the motto of the Ascended Masters, which is, those who seek us find us, try. And it's a really beautiful motto. The motto of the Theosophical Society is also beautiful. It says, there is no religion higher than truth. And that's a wonderful motto to have, which I think a lot of people in human design can get on board with. So I don't know if you have any final comments on that, Mark, or then I want to just give
Well,
a
I would
shout out.
say truth, as I always say, is a relative thing, because people say I live my truth all the time. I said, how do you know? Because they might be living their truth in the moment, which could be predominantly not self. That's a truth. But their truth, according to their design and how they're wired, is a different truth. So, and when you're going into the experiment or the experience, I like to call it, you go, you begin to decondition, and you become more yourself, at least predominantly at some point. Then, to me, you're resonating more your truth, even though truth is a relative thing along the line. But there's two different truths. There's your self-truth and your not self-truth. So to me, that's always an important context to always remember, because there are a lot of people in the world who do say, I live my truth, and they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, not really.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
they
like, are you
do on
living?
an immediate level, but they don't inevitably on a authentic design level.
Right.
That's a great point. Well, I only
Yeah.
have one quick announcement, and that is that we have the dates set for the High Desert Human Design Conference, which I hope you'll come, Sparkly, if you can, and I hope Mark will
I would love to.
as well. And the dates are September 13th to 17th, so mark your calendars, and will be September 13th to 17th, 2023. And it's here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We'll be announcing more details soon. I have a wonderful venue. I'm in an email thread, 8 emails deep with them, working out all the kinks and getting all the insurance and all this little, logistical stuff that us 5-1s are so good at, as I'm sure you know. And it's a wonderful venue about a half mile from my home, which is the Center for Human Design, where we also host events. So I'm not ready to announce the venue yet, because we're just in the final stages of signing the contracts and so on. But I'm just really excited, and we have the date set, and it's September 13th to 17th in Santa Fe.
Is this the second one?
This is the third one. This is the third one. We started in 2021. Okay. Yeah, so the third annual High Desert Human Design Conference. And last year, the first year we had 75 people. Last year we capped at 100. This year we may have to do 100 again. I'm doing a walkthrough of the event space, and we're going to discuss what the reasonable maximum can be, because each year we have a wait list and we go far over in terms of interest, in terms of come. So
yeah. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Awesome. And Jonah, do you do readings? Do you have clients? Do you any of that stuff?
I'm on hiatus right now, but I always urge anyone who wants to reach out to me, jdempsy@gmail.com. My last name is spelled kind of funny. It's DEMPCY, which, I was going to change it to an S, because that's how people always typo it. And then I looked up the Chaldean numerology, and it's actually much better with the C. So I just thought, okay, I'll just leave it. It's fine. People can deal with it. But it's jdempsy@gmail.com. And I always just urge people, I am on hiatus, but send me an email, send me your chart. I'm happy to comment, answer any questions free of charge as time allows. So,
yeah. Okay. How about you, Mark? What's
Oh,
coming
you
up?
can-
You just got back from Costa Rica. Well, you both did.
and also Santa Fe. Was hanging out with Jonah and a bunch of people discussing
Yeah.
all kinds of things. I am heading across country, so tomorrow, driving all the way to the West Coast from Pennsylvania. So I'll be stopping along the way, visiting some HD people, including perhaps Jonah there again in Santa Fe.
Do you have a hot
Um,
date? Is there a hot date on the coast that you're going to see, or?
No, I have something to do there, but no, hot dates are open to anybody. Just call me. You can, no, if anyone wants to get in touch with me too, because I do readings.
Yes.
You can go to no, actually, let's go markgermainhd@gmail.com.
Okay.
So that's me in high def
Okay.
or human designed, either one.
Okay.
Or on Facebook.
Well, this is awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and I'll list both of your email addresses in the comment section for where I post this on YouTube. So I want to thank you guys. I'm not usually good with winging things. It kind of freaks me out, but this has been great, and I really appreciate it. You guys have both been great teachers for me, and I appreciate you taking the time and just throwing out a subject about mediumship and all of the interesting information. And so I guess for the audience, you can look forward to more Heretic Happy Hour. And what a great way to start by just doing it, like you said, Jonah, right? So this is awesome.
Aren't you glad you did it?
Orange, you funny.
Oh.
Oh, okay, you guys. Well, listen, have a great day, great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.